Jota Hamasaki's gun was already half drawn when the little girl appeared. Red Christmas pajamas, silver ribbons in her hair. She looked at the Korean mafia boss who'd come to kill her father and asked, "Why do you look so sad? Do you want cookies?" She placed her little warm hands in Jota's cold, hardened hand. And just like that, he melted. For 20 years, Jota had never hesitated. Tonight, his hand froze. A 5-year-old had just done what no rival gang, no police force, no amount of money ever could. She disarmed him completely. And maybe this is how the world changes. One small act of kindness at a time. If stories like this touch you, even a little, please subscribe. It seems small, but it truly helps me keep bringing moments like these to life. And honestly, the world could use a little more softness, a little more hope. We can make it better together, one story at a time. Comment where you're watching from too. I would genuinely love to know. And if you've ever experienced something this unexpected, this human, this heart-shifting, share it. Someone out there might need to hear it. 3 hours earlier, Jota had stood in his penthouse, whiskey glass catching the city lights below. 40 stories up, the silence was absolute. No laughter, no warmth. Just expensive emptiness and the ghost of his brother's face. 3 years dead in a gang war Jota had avenged, but never mourned. His family in Busan had made their position clear. You're dead to us. His phone had shattered the quiet. The Laquan collection is tonight, boss. The men are watching. Don't go soft. Jota had said nothing. He never needed to. Now the black sedan idled in a neighborhood where Christmas lights blinked from sagging porches. Jota stepped out, tailored suit sharp against the December cold, 2 armed men flanking him like shadows. The door opened before he knocked. Damien Laquan stood there, terror carved into every line of his face. "You know why I'm here," Jota said, stepping inside without invitation. "Please," Damien's voice cracked. "Just 2 more weeks." Jota's hand moved toward his weapon. The message had to be clear. The syndicate was watching. Mercy was weakness, and weakness was death. Then she appeared. The little girl walked right up to him, holding a plate with 3 cookies like they were treasures. "Daddy, is this the friend you said was coming?" Jota's hand stopped. His men shifted uncomfortably behind him. "You look really sad," she said, tilting her head. "And you lose someone too?" "I lost my mommy, but Daddy says loving people makes us feel better." His phone buzzed. "But Lieutenant, confirmation request. Is the job done?" Jota stared at Arya's face, innocent, open, seeing something in him that didn't exist, couldn't exist. Then at Damien, frozen between his daughter and death. Slowly, Jota lowered to one knee, took the cookie with hands that had ended lives. "What's your name?" "Arya. What's yours?" For the first time in 20 years, Jota Hanasaki didn't know what to do. The gun felt impossibly heavy. The phone kept buzzing, and a 5-year-old smiled at him like he mattered. Jota should have left, should have walked out, gotten in the sedan, reported the job done. Instead, he sat at a table barely big enough for 3. His $2,000 suit jacket draped over a second-hand chair, while Arya set out mismatched bowls. "We're having ramen and chicken," she announced proudly. "Daddy makes the best ramen." Outside, his men waited by the car, confused. Inside, Damien moved through the tiny kitchen with trembling hands, hyper-aware of the man who could end everything with a single word. He placed steaming bowls on the table, never taking his eyes off Jota. "Sit, Daddy." Arya patted the chair beside her. "Uncle, what's your name again?" "Jota." "Uncle Jota needs to eat too. He looks hungry." Jota stared at the bowl. When was the last time someone had cooked for him? His penthouse had a full kitchen he'd never used. Women who stayed until dawn always left before breakfast. "I'm not hungry." Mommy used to say nobody's not hungry. They're just sad. Arya slurped noodles, unfazed by his cold stare. Did you really lose people too? Your mommy and brother? The question should have annoyed him. Instead, something old and buried shifted in his chest. Yes. Does it hurt forever? Yes. Damien tensed, but Arya just nodded solemnly. Daddy cries sometimes at night. He thinks I don't hear, but I do. She pushed a crayon drawing across the table. Stick figures. A man, a woman, a small girl. The woman's face was just an outline now, scribbled over but still visible. That's where Mommy was. The picture feels empty now. Jota's throat tightened. He kicked up the drawing, saw the erasure marks, the way she'd tried to fill the space with flowers and stars, but couldn't quite manage it. I understand empty spaces. Damien's voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Hamasaki, the debt. I can't pay it. I know what that means. His hands clenched. Just let me put her to bed first. Let me say goodbye properly. Jota looked at this man who'd borrowed $48,000 to let his wife die with dignity, who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't make the interest payments, who was willing to die if it meant his daughter wouldn't watch. He stood. Damien flinched. Consider the debt forgiven, Jota said. Merry Christmas. A silence was absolute. Damien's eyes went wide, disbelieving. What? You heard me. Jota moved toward the door. Wait! Arya scrambled from her chair, grabbed his hand with both of hers. Will you come back? Daddy's making turkey for real Christmas dinner. Please. Every instinct screamed to refuse. This was already too much, too dangerous. His reputation was built on ruthlessness, on never showing weakness. One forgiven debt could unravel everything. But her hands were so small in his, so warm. What time? He heard himself say. Arya's smile could have lit the whole city. 6 o'clock. Promise you'll come? I promise. Outside, his phone rang before he reached the sedan. A lieutenant. Is it done? Jota stared at the apartment window where Arya's face pressed against the glass, waving. The debt will be paid in installments. I'm handling it personally. Boss, that's not protocol. I said I'm handling it. He ended the call. In the car, his men said nothing, but Jota saw their exchanged glances in the rearview mirror. Word would spread. Questions would be asked. He didn't care. For first time in 20 years, Jota Hamasaki had somewhere to be on Christmas. Christmas Eve found Jota in his penthouse again, whiskey untouched, staring at the city lights that no longer held any meaning. He couldn't stop seeing Arya's smile, the way her hands had felt in his, the empty space in her drawing. His phone buzzed. Minjin, his second in command. Boss, you missed the midnight meeting. The others are asking questions. I have business to handle. What business? The Lekwan debt is. Jota hung up. He grabbed his coat and keys, drove to a toy store still open for last-minute shoppers. The giant teddy bear cost $300. He didn't blink. Then a market for real groceries. Quality turkey, fresh vegetables, imported wine he suspected Damien wouldn't drink but needed to bring anyway. At 6 o'clock sharp, he stood outside their apartment door, arms full of bags and an absurdly large bear. Damien opened it, eyes widening. What? Why are you doing this? Jota had rehearsed answers during the drive. Tax write-off, investment, strategy. But standing there, he found himself saying, I don't know, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Uncle Joe! Arya exploded past her father, threw her arms around his legs. You came back! You really came back! Something in Jota's chest cracked open. He knelt, and she grabbed the teddy bear with a squeal that made him smile. Actually smile, for the first time in years. Dinner was simple. Turkey that Damien had clearly stressed over, lumpy mashed potatoes, store-bought pie. But Arya's laughter filled every corner of the small apartment. She pulled a paper crown from the Christmas cracker and placed it solemnly on Jota's head. Now you're the Christmas king, she declared. They watched Elf on a television smaller than Jada's bathroom mirror. Arya explained every joke like he was from another planet. Which, in a way, he was. Damien sat in the worn armchair, watching his man who'd come to kill him now wearing a paper crown and laughing at Will Ferrell. Halfway through the movie, Arya curled against Jota's side and fell asleep. He froze, afraid to breathe, afraid to move and wake her. Her small hand clutched his shirt. Her breath was warm against his ribs. Damien spoke quietly. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you." Jota's voice was rough. They sat in silence, the movie playing softly. Then Damien saw it. Wetness on Jota's cheek, catching the television's light. "When's the last time you had a family Christmas?" Jota looked down at Arya, at her peaceful face, at the trust she'd given him without question. Never. The word hung in the air. Damien understood then this dangerous man holding his daughter wasn't a threat. He was just desperately, achingly alone. "You're welcome here," Damien said. "Anytime." Jota nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Outside, the city sparkled with Christmas lights. Inside, for the first time in his life, Jota Hamasaki felt like he'd come home. Before we go on, let me say this. Stories like this aren't just fiction. They're little reminders that kindness still matters. That even broken people can choose something softer. If you believe that too, subscribe. It might seem like a tiny thing, but it helps me keep telling these human stories, the kind that remind someone out there that they're not alone. And please, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your own experiences or moments that changed you. January arrived cold and gray, but Jota barely noticed. He found himself at the Laquan apartment too, sometimes 3 times a week. Tuesday evenings, Thursday after work, Sunday afternoons that stretched into dinner. "Okay, Uncle Joe, you have to pinch it tight or the filling escapes." Arya held up her dumpling, lopsided and leaking with absolute pride. They were making mandu at the kitchen counter, flour everywhere. Arya standing on a chair to reach. Like this, Jota demonstrated the fold his mother had taught him 30 years ago, before everything went dark. "Yes!" Arya tried to copy him. The dumpling exploded. She dissolved into giggles. He'd also made a call. One conversation with the owner of a construction company he had financial leverage over. Now Damien worked 1 job instead of 2, made 3 times what he'd been earning, and came home before dark. "I don't know how to thank you," Damien had said. "Don't. Just let me keep visiting." At the aquarium, Arya's hand stayed locked in his the entire time. She talked non-stop about seahorses and jellyfish and whether octopuses had feelings. Jota listened to every word like she was sharing state secrets. Other families smiled at them. Father and daughter, they probably assumed. He didn't correct them. "Uncle Joe, teach me more Korean words," Arya demanded one evening. "Kajok," he said. "Kajok, family." "Kajok," she repeated carefully. "What about love?" "Sarang, sarang." "And home?" "Jeep." His voice caught on that one. "Jeep," Arya said, then hugged him. "You're our Jeep now too." His associates noticed everything. Jota caught himself smiling during meetings, something his face had forgotten how to do. He left before business concluded. "I have somewhere to be." When Arya called, his entire demeanor shifted, voice warming like sun breaking through clouds. Minjun cornered him after one meeting. "Boss, the others are talking. They think you're compromised. Let them talk." "Park Tae-sung is asking questions. He smells weakness. I said let them talk." Jota's voice went cold. "I'm still running this organization. What I do in my personal time is irrelevant." But it wasn't irrelevant. And they both knew it. The next Sunday, Arya presented him with a new drawing. "Look, I fixed it." The family picture, the blank space where her mother had been, now held a new figure. Dark hair, sharp suit, holding a small girl's hand. The man was smiling. "That's you, Uncle Joe. You're in our family now." Jota stared at the drawing until his vision blurred. Damien watched from the kitchen, understanding the weight of what his daughter had just offered. Belonging, acceptance, home. Can I keep this? Jouta's voice was barely steady. It's yours. I made it for you. He folded it carefully, placed it in his wallet, next to the photo from Christmas. That night, in his penthouse, he looked at the drawing for an hour. For the first time in his life, Jouta Hamasaki belonged somewhere, to someone. And that terrified him more than any bullet ever had. The loan shark cornered Damien outside Arya's school on a Wednesday afternoon. Jouta only learned about it because he'd arrived early to surprise them. Payments overdue, Laquan. The man, greasy hair, cheap suit, had Damien pressed against the chain-link fence. Maybe I need to teach you about consequences. That's a pretty little girl you got there. Damien's face went white. Stay away from my daughter. Or what? You gonna stop me? The shark laughed. I know where she goes to school. I know what time she gets out. I know... You know nothing. Jouta's voice cut through the air like a blade. The lone shark turned. His sneer died when he saw Jouta's face, recognized it. The color drained from his skin. Mr. Hamasaki, this isn't your... Jouta didn't speak, didn't blink, just looked at the man with eyes that had watched people die and felt nothing. The lone shark started backing away, hands raised. We're good, no problem here. He practically ran to his car. Damien slumped against the fence, breathing hard. Jesus Christ, who are you really? That evening, after Arya was asleep, Jouta told him everything. They sat at the kitchen table and he laid it out. The Hamasaki Syndicate, the territories, the violence, the bodies. I came to your house that night to send a message in blood, Jouta said quietly. Your debt was never about money. It was about fear. About making sure everyone knew what happened when you couldn't pay. Damien's hands trembled around his coffee mug. And now? Now I would kill anyone who touched you. Either of you. That's what you are? A killer? Yes. No hesitation, no excuses. Damien stared at him for a long moment. Are you dangerous to us? To Arya? Never. Jouta's voice was steel. I would die first. And I don't care what you've done. Damien's voice was steady now. I care what you do from here. How can you... My daughter lost her mother 9 months ago. She stopped drawing, stopped laughing. I watched her disappear a little more every day. Damien's eyes were wet. Then you showed up, and she came back to life. You did that. Whatever elf you are, you're the man who made my daughter smile again. Jouta couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She loves you, Damien said simply. And I trust her judgment more than I trust anything else in this world. So whatever you are out there, in here, you're just Uncle Joe, the man who teaches her to make dumplings and carries her when she falls asleep watching movies. They shook hands across the table. An unspoken pact sealed in silence. Jouta would protect them from his world, and they would give him a place in theirs. Later, driving home, Jouta looked at the drawing in his wallet. For the first time since his brother died, he had something worth protecting. And that made him more dangerous than he'd ever been. Arya's school talent show was on a Friday evening in late January. Jouta sat in the back of the auditorium, expensive suit among parents in jeans and hoodies, feeling completely out of place at exactly where he needed to be. When Arya took the stage in her sparkly dress, his breath caught. She'd been practicing her dance for 2 weeks, making him watch her routine every time he visited. Now she moved under the stage lights, tiny and fierce and utterly fearless. Before she started, she grabbed the microphone. I want to dedicate this to my Uncle Joe, who taught me that families can grow bigger, even when people leave. Love you, Uncle Joe. His vision blurred. Around him, parents smiled at the sweet dedication. They had no idea who he was, what he was. They just saw another proud uncle, and that anonymity felt like absolution. When she finished, the applause erupted. Arya's eyes found his immediately, and she ran off stage, not to Damien in the front row, but straight to the back, to him. She launched herself into his arms. Did you see me? Did you see me? You were perfect. His voice cracked. So perfect, sweetheart. Other parents glanced over, smiling at the obvious affection. A woman next to him said, "She's adorable. Your niece?" Jota held Arya tighter. "Yes, my family." Walking to the car afterward, Arya held his hand and chattered about the performance, about her friends, about wanting to take dance classes. Real ones, not just at school. "Do you think Daddy can afford it?" "I'll handle it," Jota said automatically. She stopped walking, looked up at him with those impossibly wise 5-year-old eyes. "I wish you could stay forever. Like, live with us forever." His heart stuttered. "Me too, sweetheart." Later that night, after Arya was in bed, Damien and Jota sat on the small balcony. The city sprawled below them, and for once, Jota didn't see territories and power. He just saw lights. "I want to help you build a real future," Jota said. "College fund for Arya, a house in a better neighborhood, whatever you need." "Joe," Damien's voice was thick, "you've already given us everything. You gave us hope again. You gave Arya her smile back. You gave me a brother, a friend, someone who understands loss. I need to do more. You've done enough. Just keep showing up. That's all we need." The next morning, Jota took Arya to the park. She insisted on a family photo at the playground. Her, Damien, and Jota together. A passing jogger took it with Damien's phone. Jota had it printed that afternoon. Professional quality, 8x10, in a silver frame. He kept one copy on his penthouse desk, the only personal item in the entire space. The original went to Arya. That evening, sitting in his empty penthouse, he pulled out his wallet. The drawing, the Christmas photo, now this new one, folded carefully beside them. He stared at the images until his vision blurred. Arya's smile, Damien's arm around his shoulders. The three of them looking like what they'd become. A family. For the first time in his life, Jota Hamasaki had something to lose. And in his world, that made him the most vulnerable man alive. But as he looked at their faces, he realized something terrifying. He didn't care. They were worth any risk, any place, even his life. A call came during Arya's talent show. Jota had silenced his phone, ignored the vibrations in his pocket while she danced on stage. Minjun called 3 times, then 4. By the time Jota checked his messages, there were 7 missed calls and a single text. "Emergency meeting. Now." He texted back, "Handling personal business tomorrow." The response was immediate. "The others won't wait. Park is making moves." Jota had turned his phone off entirely and watched his goddaughter, no, his family, take her bow. The consequences arrived Monday morning. Minjun appeared at his penthouse at dawn, face grim. "We need to talk about the fact that you missed the most important syndicate meeting in 3 years to watch a elementary school talent show." Minjun paced the living room. The distributors from Vancouver were there, the dock union representatives, everyone who matters. And our boss was watching 5-year-olds dance. "I told you I was handling personal business." Personal business? "Boss, they're questioning your leadership. Park Taesung stood up in that meeting and said you've gone soft, that the Hamasaki Syndicate is vulnerable now because its leader cares more about playing house than protecting territory." Jota's jaw tightened. "What I do in my personal time, there is no personal time." Minjun's voice cracked with frustration. "Not for you, not for us. You think Park doesn't know about the Laquans? He has eyes everywhere. He knows you forgave that debt. He knows you visit them constantly. He's telling everyone you're compromised." "I can handle Park." "Can you? Because right now half our own men are wondering if he's right." Minjun stopped pacing, faced him directly. "I'm your friend, Joe. Have been for 15 years. So I'm asking you straight. Is it true? Are you compromised?" Jota thought about Arya's face when she dedicated her dance to him. Damien had called him brother. The feeling of belonging somewhere, to someone, for the first time since his family had disowned him. "Yes," he said quietly. "I suppose I am." Minjun closed his eyes. "Then you need to end it now, before Park uses them against you." "I'm not ending anything." "Joe." I said no. The package arrived that afternoon. Joda was in a meeting with his accountants when his assistant knocked, something she never did unless it was critical. Her face was pale. "This just came for you. The courier said it was urgent." Inside the plain manila envelope were photographs. Dozens of them. Arya at school, backpack bouncing as she skipped to the entrance. Arya at the park, feeding ducks with Damien. Arya getting ice cream, Joda's hand holding hers as they walked. Close-ups, professional surveillance. Someone had been watching them for weeks. The note was simple, typed on plain paper. "Beautiful child. Would be a shame if something happened. Soft men die first." Chowta's blood turned to ice. His hands actually shook as he spread the photos across his desk. Every moment of happiness he'd stolen over the past 6 weeks, now weaponized. Proof of his weakness. Proof of what Park could take from him. He made 3 calls. First, to his security chief. "I need a team on the Lequin family. 24/7 surveillance. They don't know they're being watched. Understand? If anyone gets within 50 feet who doesn't belong there, I want to know immediately." Second, to his intelligence network. Find out everything about Park's current operations. Every deal, every associate, every place he feels safe. I want vulnerabilities. Third, to Park himself. They met in a neutral location, a restaurant Park owned, which meant Chowta was walking into enemy territory. He didn't care. He sat across from Park Taesung, a man 10 years his senior, with a smile like a knife wound. "Chowta, I'm glad you came. Touch them and I'll burn your empire to ash." No pleasantries, no pretense. Park laughed, genuinely delighted. "Already afraid? That's how I know I've won. The great Chowta Hamasaki, reduced to making threats over a single father and his little girl. This is your only warning." "Warning?" Park leaned forward. "You think you're in a position to warn me? Half your organization thinks you've gone soft. The other half is waiting to see if I'm right. All I had to do was take a few pictures and you came running. Imagine what I could do with more direct action." Chowta's hand moved to his weapon. Park's bodyguards tensed. "Go ahead," Park said softly. "Shoot me here, in my own restaurant, surrounded by my men. Prove to everyone that you're still the monster they fear. Or are you too compromised even for that?" Chowta stood slowly, every muscle screaming to end this now, to eliminate the threat before it manifested. But Park was right. Killing him here would start a war Chowta couldn't win. Not with his own organization questioning his leadership. "Stay away from them," Chowta said. Park's smile widened. "Or what? You'll love them harder? That's your problem, Chowta. You finally found something worth protecting, which means you finally have something worth taking." Chowta walked out knowing he'd made a fatal mistake, not in loving them, but in thinking he could keep his 2 worlds separate. That night, he sat in his car outside the Liquan apartment, watching the lit windows. Arya's silhouette moved past, probably getting ready for bed. Damien appeared, closing curtains. His security team was in position. 3 cars, 8 men, rotating shifts. The best he had. But it wouldn't be enough. It was never enough. As long as he was connected to them, they would be targets. Leverage. Weakness. He had 2 choices. Stay and endanger them, or leave and return to his empty existence. There was no real choice. He knew what he had to do. He just didn't know if he was strong enough to do it. If this moment hit you in the chest even a little, subscribe. Stories like this only continue because you do. And if you're still here, feeling something, don't just leave quietly. Let me know where you're watching from. It matters more than you think. Late January brought the kind of cold that made the city feel brittle, like it might shatter. Jota picked up Arya from school on a Thursday. Damien was working late on a project deadline. And she bounced into his car with her usual explosion of energy. Uncle Joe, can we go ice skating? Please, please, please. Daddy said maybe this weekend, but you're here now and the rink is open and I've never been. And yes, he couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. We can go. Her squeal of delight made his chest warm. When had he become this person? The man who rearranged his schedule for a 5-year-old's whims? The man who smiled? The outdoor rink was lit with strings of lights, half full with couples and families. Jalta rented skates. He'd learned as a teenager in Korea, a lifetime ago, and held Arya's hands as she wobbled on the ice, laughing every time she nearly fell. I'm doing it! Uncle Joe, look! I'm skating! You're a natural, he steadied her, moving backward while she gripped his hands, trust absolute in her face. They skated for an hour. Had hot chocolate that Arya insisted was the best thing ever. She talked about wanting to visit Korea someday, about learning to make kimchi, about whether he'd teach her taekwondo like the kids in her class. I'd like that very much, Jalta said, and meant it. He was already planning it. Summer trip to Seoul, show her where he grew up, introduce her to the parts of his past that words soaked in blood. Driving home, Arya chatted in the passenger seat, about her day, about her friends, about everything and nothing. Jalta listened to every word, warmth spreading through his chest. This was happiness. This simple, ordinary happiness he'd never thought he'd have. He was thinking, maybe this is possible, when the headlights flooded his rearview mirror. The SUV came fast, engine roaring. Jalta's instincts screamed danger before his conscious mind processed it. He recognized the plates. Park's men. Arya, get down. Now. His voice, cold, sharp, nothing like Uncle Joe, made her freeze. Then the rear window exploded. Glass showered the interior. Arya's scream pierced through the gunfire. Jalta swerved violently, one arm shooting across to shield her, the other white-knuckling the steering wheel. Bullets punched through the trunk, the rear seats, everywhere she'd been sitting seconds ago. His training took over. He yanked the wheel hard right, cut across 2 lanes, reached for the gun holstered at his ankle, all while keeping his body between Arya and the attackers. The SUV matched his maneuvers, closing distance. More gunfire. The side mirror disintegrated. Jalta's face transformed into something cold and lethal, the mask he wore when ending lives. He twisted in his seat, aimed through the shattered rear window with deadly precision, and fired. 3 shots. The SUV's front tire exploded with a sound like a bomb. The vehicle careened wildly, driver overcorrecting, then smashed into a parked car with a shriek of metal. Silence crashed down. Snow drifted through the broken windows. Jalta's shoulder burned, grazed by a bullet, bleeding through his shirt. His heart hammered. His gun was still raised, smoking in his hand. Then he turned to check on Arya. She was physically unharmed. He'd shielded her perfectly. Not a scratch. But her eyes were wide with absolute terror, fixed on the gun in his hand, on the blood, on his face still wearing that cold killer expression. She looked at him like she'd never seen him before, like he was a monster. Uncle Joe? Her voice was barely a whisper. The way she said it shattered him. Not with love, not with trust, with fear. Pure primal fear. She pressed herself against the passenger door, as far from him as possible, trembling, tears streaming down her face. Her breath came in little gasps. Sweetheart, he reached for her. She flinched away from his touch. That flinch destroyed him more than any bullet ever could. She was afraid of him. This child who'd looked at him with such unconditional love, who called him family, who made him feel human again. She saw what he really was now. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I would never hurt you. I was protecting you. But she couldn't hear him over her own fear. Couldn't see past the gun, the blood, the violence he'd unleashed. He'd contaminated her, taken the one pure, innocent thing in his life and destroyed it with his own hands. I'm sorry, he said again. uselessly. He drove to her apartment in complete silence. Arya wouldn't look at him, wouldn't speak, just stared out the window, crying quietly, one hand clutching the door handle like she might need to escape. Every block felt like a knife twisting deeper. When they arrived, she bolted from the car the instant it stopped, ran to the apartment building without looking back. Jouta followed slowly, his shoulder bleeding, glass in his hair, his heart in pieces. Damien opened the door and saw everything immediately. The shattered car visible from the window, his daughter's terror, Jouta's blood. What happened? Damien pulled Arya close. She buried her face in his chest. Jouta stood in the doorway, this man who'd killed dozens without hesitation, and couldn't find words. He'd known this moment would come, had always known. You couldn't bring light into darkness without the darkness consuming it. I need to talk to you, he finally said. After she's in bed. Damien nodded, face grim. He carried Arya to her room. Jouta heard her crying, heard Damien's soothing voice. He stood in the living room, this place that had become his home, and knew he was about to lose it. Because there was only one way to keep them safe. He had to leave. What the hell happened? My world found them. Jouta's voice was hollow, just like I knew it would. He reached into his jacket. Damien tensed and pulled out a thick envelope, placed it on the kitchen table with mechanical precision. $500,000 in bearer bonds. Clears every bet you've ever had, pays for Arya's education through PhD, buys you a house in a safe neighborhood far from here. Joe, what are you? I'm leaving, tonight, permanently. The words came out flat, rehearsed. You'll never see me again. You can't just, I'm poisoned, Damien. Jouta's control cracked. Everything I touch turns dark. I thought maybe I could be different, that I could be the man Arya thought I was, but I can't change what I am. So you're running? I'm protecting you. His voice rose. She looked at me tonight like I was a monster, and she was right. That's exactly what I am. A killer, a gangster, a man who brings violence everywhere he goes. She's 5 years old who just lived through a shooting. Men like Park will keep coming as long as I'm in your lives. Jouta slammed his hand on the table. Next time I might not be fast enough. Next time Arya dies, because I was selfish enough to think I could have this, have you, have a family. Damien stood, jaw tight with fury. You don't get to decide what's best for us. I'm trying to protect... No. You're protecting yourself from the pain of staying, from the risk of actually loving us. Damien's voice shook. You think we don't know what you are. We've known from the beginning. You don't understand. My daughter said to me after Christmas, Daddy, Uncle Joe's eyes are sad like yours were. Maybe if we love him, he'll be happy again. She wasn't trying to fix you, Jouta. She was trying to love you. Jota's eyes burned. She's afraid of me now. Of course she's scared. She just got shot at. But you know what will terrify her more? Waking up tomorrow and you're gone. Another person who left her. Another person she loved who disappeared. I can't. She lost her mother. Damien's voice broke. You don't get to make her lose you too, just because it's easier for you to run. It's not about easy. Then what's it about? Because from where I'm standing, you're abandoning a little girl who loves you because staying is hard. Because fighting for us is scary. I'm trying to keep you safe. We were never safe. Life isn't safe. Damien's voice cracked with emotion. But we had you. We had family. And you're throwing that away. From the hallway, a small voice. Uncle Joe? Everything stopped. Arya stood there in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Eyes red and swollen from crying. The moment froze. Jota's heart shattered all over again. This was the reckoning. Arya walked forward slowly, each step deliberate. Her stuffed rabbit dragged on the floor behind her. Are you leaving because I got scared? Jouta dropped to his knees, barely holding himself together. No, sweetheart. I'm leaving because I don't want you to ever be scared again. But I'm more scared you go away. Tears streamed down her face. Mommy left and never came back. Are you leaving like Mommy? The words destroyed him. Arya. She wrapped her small arms around his neck, held tight like she was afraid he'd disappear. Mommy used to say loving people is brave, even when it's scary. Are you brave, Uncle Joe? 20 years of walls crumbled. Jouta's composure shattered completely. Tears he hadn't shed since his brother died fell freely. I don't know if I am, Arya. She pulled back, looked into his eyes with that impossible 5-year-old wisdom. I think you are. You saved me tonight. Monsters don't save people. She's right. Damien's voice was steady now. You don't get to walk away, Jouta. You chose this when you sat at our table, when you taught her to make dumplings, when you made her laugh for the first time since her mother died. You're in this, all the way. Not because we're trapping you, but because you love us, and we love you. So choose. Run back to your empty penthouse and your empty life, or stay and fight for your family. Because that's what we are now. Family. Jouta looked at Arya, then at Damien. Everything he believed, that he was irredeemable, that love would destroy them, that isolation was safety, crumbled to dust. Redemption wasn't about escaping his past. It was about choosing a future, fighting for what mattered, even when it was dangerous, even when it cost everything. He took Arya's small hands in his. I'm not going anywhere. I promise. I will fight for you. Both of you. Always. Promise? Her voice was so small, so hopeful. On everything I am, you're my family now. Arya smiled through her tears and hugged him tight. Over her shoulder, Jouta met Damien's eyes and nodded, a pact sealed without words. He made one phone call that night. Not to run, not to hide, to go to war. 3 weeks later, Jouta sat at the dinner table in the new house. 3 bedrooms, safe neighborhood, bought through an LLC that couldn't be traced. Arya was teaching him to play Uno, cheating outrageously and giggling when he called her on it. Damien hummed in the kitchen, cooking bulgogi from the recipe Jouta had taught him. His phone rang. Mingjun. Business. Bloody business. Handle it. Jouta said coldly, I'm with my family. He hung up without waiting for a response. Uncle Joe, it's your turn. Arya bounced in her seat. He drew a card, played it, and watched her reaction. This was what he'd been searching for his entire life without knowing it. This warmth, this belonging, this home. Outside, his security detail maintained the perimeter. The threat wasn't gone, it never would be. Park's organization had been systematically dismantled. But enemies were like weeds. Cut one down, 2 more grew. But Jouta wasn't running anymore. He was exactly where he belonged. His phone rang again. Unknown number, international prefix he recognized immediately. Korea. His hand froze over the cards. Nobody from Korea had this number. Nobody from Korea should even know he was alive. Uncle Joe, you okay? Arya's voice seemed far away. He stood, walked to the kitchen, answered. Yes. Silence, then a voice he hadn't heard in 23 years. A voice identical to his own, but colder, sharper, like a blade dipped in poison. Hello, little twin brother. Jota's blood turned to ice. His grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles went white. Kaito. Surprised? You shouldn't be. Did you really think you could build a new life and I wouldn't find out? Pauses. I've been watching you, Jouta. For months now. The Laquan family, the little girl. Very touching. Very vulnerable. Stay away from them. Laughter. A cruel, familiar sound. Or what, you'll protect them? You couldn't even protect our brother. That's why he's dead, isn't it? Because you were too weak, too soft. Just like you are now. Kaito, I'm warning you. No, little brother. I'm warning you. The warmth drained from the voice entirely. You walked away from the family. From our legacy. From everything Father built. You became a disgrace. And now you're playing house with strangers while our name rots. I don't want any part of that world anymore. You don't get to choose. The rage exploded through the phone. You're a Hamasaki, that means something, or it did until you decided to become a pet for some dead woman's leftovers. Jota's free hand clenched into a fist. Through the doorway, he could see Arya laughing at the table. Damien setting down plates. His family, his home. What do you want? I want you to remember what you are, who you are. Kaito's voice dropped to a whisper. So I'm going to take everything you love. Piece by piece, the man, the girl, every single thing that makes you feel human. And when you're empty again, when you're broken, then you'll come home, where you belong. If you Pachram, you'll what? You couldn't stop me 23 years ago. You won't stop me now. A pause. I'm already in your city, Jota. I've been here for weeks. Watching, planning, learning all their routines. The girl goes to Franklin Elementary. The father works at Morrison Construction. Your security team rotates every 8 hours. Sloppy, by the way. Jota's heart hammered against his ribs. Kaito. I'm going to destroy everything you've built. Not because I need to. Because I want you to suffer the way I suffered when you abandoned us. When you chose revenge over family. The voice turned into a hiss. You created this, little brother. Every drop of blood that falls is on your hands. The line went dead. Jota stood frozen in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, listening to empty silence. Through the doorway, Arya called out, Uncle Joe, we're waiting for you. But all he could hear was his twin brother's voice, Kaito, the ghost he'd left behind in Korea. The monster who'd always been stronger, faster, more ruthless. The brother who'd made Jota look like a saint. And now he was here, in this city, watching his family. Jota's hands began to shake, not with fear, but with the horrible realization of what was coming. To protect them, he'd have to become something worse than Kaito, something darker than he'd ever been. And if he did that, if he became that monster again, would there be anything left of Uncle Joe? The man who taught Arya to make dumplings? The man who finally found home? Uncle Joe? Arya appeared in the kitchen doorway, concerned. Are you coming back? He looked at her innocent face and felt his heart break. Because he knew the answer. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. Before I tell you what Jota does next, hit subscribe. Not for me. Do it so you don't miss the moment his past finally collides with the family he never expected to love. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to see just how far Jota's new family reaches. Also, should I continue this? Do you actually want a part 2 of this war he can't outrun?